Nakaaway mo ba ang boss mo dahil sa isang bagay na work-related? May issue ka ba sa kumpanya na work-related at di mo alam paano i-handle? Kung problema mo ay work-related, kinig, nood at follow na sa DWIZ Work-Related kasama ang motivational speaker ng Pilipinas, si Lloyd Luna at ang kanyang mga expert na mga bisita sa DWIZ Sabado 3 p.m.
Isang magandang araw. Welcome muli sa mga katrabaho natin dito sa programang tumatalakay sa hamon na tagumpay sa workplace, mga challenges at personal growth na work-related. Makakasama ang inyong lingkod, Lloyd Luna. Makakasama rin po ninyo ako sa DWIZ 882 AM, Metro and Mega Manila, sa DWIZ News FM regional stations, mapapanood sa DWIZ News TV, and sa Digital Free TV. Mapapanood, mapapakinggan via news website www.dwiz882am.com. I-download ang DWIZ app, DWIZ 882 sa iOS at sa inyong mga Android phone. Live streaming naman via DWIZ 882 Facebook page and YouTube channel. Of course, huwag niyo kalilimutan mag-subscribe, follow, and i-share a comment at mga questions ninyo, reactions sa ating episode for today. Bago natin simulan ng episode ngayong araw, ating balikan ng ilang pinag-usapan sa aming mga naging bisita dito sa work-related. Medyo marami-rami na, no? Gaya na lang ng chiropractic care. Isa itong field sa healthcare na nakatuon sa ating gulugod. Gulugod pala yung Tagalog. Musculoskeletal system. Karaniwan, iniisip ng marami na trabaho lang ang chiropractor ay pag-crack ng likod, pero higit pa rito ang kanilang ginagawa. Alamin na iba pang benefits nito sa aming panayam kay Doc Rob, owner ng Doc Rob Chiropractic Wellness Clinic. I mean, sa workplace, and we're talking about work-related things here, stress can cause a lot of problems, health problems, right?
Yes.
And how do you get to help these people naman na may mga stress sa trabaho? When they go to you, malamang yan yung isa sa mga stress din sila. Pangtanggal ng stress din ba yan?
Oh yes, oo, di ba? Di ba, Doc? Like, chiropractic really remove all your stress.
It helps
Diba?
alleviate stress. Yeah, of
Oo.
course.
Because nandun I mean, pag stress ka sa trabaho mo, you're doing well in your job and you know, politics, corporate politics, things like that. And sometimes you get the migraine
Yes, oo.
and other things.
So yeah, we all have stress. You know, for work, our at home, relationships, financial.
Right.
We all have these stressors, and that's why chiropractic is so important. That we all really should be having this. You see, we're slowly just declining, right? Every single year, we're getting older, we're aging, right?
Right.
That stress is really one of the big drivers in that. The more stress you have, the faster you're aging and the more unhealthy you are.
Right. And so when you align your
So yeah, so that stress, it's affecting the joints and it's affecting the nerves. So when we care for this, when we care for your spine, we alleviate that stress that has been accumulating. So we allow the joint and the nerve to function.
Right.
So you're actually healthier. So it's not about back pain, it's really about becoming healthier.
right. So this is the new fountain of youth.
It is. We are slowing the degeneration that's developing. We all are degenerating. Our spine is deteriorating. That's why we get shorter, and that's why we get stiffer.
Oh.
So I can tell a person's age just by palpating their spine. You know, if it's super stiff, of course, they're probably older because there's now some decay. There's some arthritis developing.
Right.
So these adjustments help slow that progression. And they allow the nerves to function at a better efficiency. So you're stronger, your immune system's stronger, you're getting sick less often. So
And you think better. I mean, especially sa trabaho, no? So
yeah,
yung mga
focus, concentration, yeah.
Oo. Sabi ko nga lagi, no? Sabi ko, when your body is aligned, everything flows in the right direction.
Right. Because I think many of us are focused on, you know, what to take, what to add. You go to the gym, and you just build your muscle, and things like that.
Yeah, and that's good. Of course,
Yeah.
having going to the gym is great exercise for your bones and muscles. But yes, that is a physical stress,
Right.
and that is affecting your body. So you need this therapy, and that's the great thing about chiropractic. It's not long. It's not a therapy where you're there for an hour. It takes 5 minutes if done properly. So you're in and out, and it's just like brushing your teeth. It's a preventative tool, so you don't develop these cavities which are developing in your spine that are affecting your health.
Right.
That's a beautiful thing about it. It's very fast, but very, very powerful.
Samantala, ang Gen Z o mga ipinanganak mula 1990s, kasama ba tayo doon? Hanggang early 2000s.
Sila.
Kilala bilang mga tech ito, mga tech savvy, malikhain daw, creative. At matinding hangarin is magkaroon ng saysay ang kanilang trabaho. So paano na lang kaming mga millennials, no? Pero kasabay ng mga katahing ito, ang hamon, tulad din ng pag-bridge ng generational gap, pag-aangkop sa mga bagong workplace expectations, at paglikha ng kapaligiran ng sumusuporta sa kanilang paglago. Kaya, paano nga ba makakahanap ng tamang balanse ang negosyo para mapanatiling engaged and motivated ang Gen Z sa kanilang mga trabaho? Pagdating dyan, alamin natin ang perspektibo ni Tristan Peralta, Managing Director ng Psych Apps, isang business and human resource consulting firm.
May apat, kung hindi ako nagkakamali, may apat na facets ang HR, compensation benefits, training and development, ano pa yung dalawa?
Recruitment, sir.
Recruitment, and then the other one is
Tapos, may employee relations.
okay, employee relations, etc. So, yun, nako-cover nyo yun, kaya nyo i-cover
Yes, sir.
yun. So, from recruitment.
Oo. Ang tawag namin dyan, sir, employee life cycle. So, pagpasok ng empleyado sa isang kumpanya hanggang pag-alis niya. Yun po.
Talagang ini-envision natin na one day aalis siya.
Oo. Kasi ganyan, sir. Lalo na, sir, i-share ko lang yung mga bagong henerasyon ng mga empleyado. Ayan.
Pag sinabing bagong henerasyon, wag itago natin siya sa pangalang Gen Z.
Gen Z. So,
Hello, Gen Z.
tama kasi sa amin, sir, sa experience namin, yung mga kumpanya nagkakaroon ng challenge sa paghahawak ng mga Gen Z na empleyado. Madaming mga aspeto na kailangan nilang tugunan para makuha nila yung benepisyo. Kasi yung mga Gen Z, they're very talented. They're very good. But the challenge is that how can you retain and maintain these kinds of employees? So, yun, sir, yung isa sa mga challenges na nakikita namin sa industriya ngayon.
So, base sa inyo, base sa experience na meron kayo, and do you have, ang assumption ko is nakipagtrabaho na kayo dito sa generation na ito, what makes them stay at a particular workplace or company?
Okay. So, they're very strong in terms of mentorship. So, gusto nila yung mga may magme-mentor sa kanila.
Oh, yun yung problema natin. Kasi sa experience ko, may yung mga nauna sa kanilang generation, parang medyo threatened nitong mga batang ito. So, paano yun? Ayaw kong mag-mentor kasi threat ka nga sa akin eh. Pero gusto mo naman.
So, ano yan, sir? Tingnan natin from different perspectives.
Sige, tingnan natin.
Kung kayo yung may-ari, okay, meron kang millennials kasi yung bago Gen Z, di ba? So, millennials ayaw...
Tayo yata yan.
Oh,
Tayo
parang
yan.
mga ganun, sir.
Sino?
Sumabit tayo. So, ano yan, sir? Ang tawag dito, yung millennials na yung magtuturo sa Gen Z. Okay. So, ngayon, yung sinasabi niya, titratin ako kasi parang ito yung next generation na baka pumalit sa akin. So, from a perspective ni may-ari, kailangan parati ng continuity ng negosyo. Tipo,
Okay.
kahit umalis ang tao, dapat alam. Okay. Tapos, dapat kahit umalis yung tao in terms of nag-leave, ganyan, may gumagawa na tao.
Right.
And of course, para dun sa mga may tatawag dyan na succession, no? So, maasahan mo na nagde-develop ang mga tao. Kasi ang mga tao naman po, hindi lang sila nagsistay sa kumpanya dahil magandang sweldo. Kadalasan, nagsistay sila kasi maganda yung environment, natututunan sila.
Ay, so paano nga yun? Kung ang napasukan kong kumpanya hindi ko maasahan sa pag-mentor, pag-coach sa akin. So, wasted opportunity ako.
Depende, sir, kung ano yung position nyo. For example, kung kayo nasa managerial, so responsibility natin na iangat na sa management. Management, no? Umattend ako sa mga training, nakikinig tayo sa mga programang ganito, no? May natutunan ako na, meron palang isang ganito, ba't hindi natin i-apply? Kung managerial ka, sir. Ngayon,
Kung nandito ako sa entry, kasi kadalasan ang nalalagas sa entry level eh. Oo,
correct.
yung mga one year or less or 2 years or less.
Correct.
Ano yan? In out.
Oo, Tama.
At ang kanilang turnover ay mataas.
So pag yung mga entry level naman, anong magagawa ko? Diba? Usually sir, yan ang responsibility ngayon nila na iangat sa management. Sa paraan na, siyempre, very suggestive lang, maayos sa paraan, and sa tamang avenue. Ibig sabihin ng avenue, meron po bang pwedeng kausapin na, kasi yung mga iba, kahit gaano kagandang mensahe mo, hindi maganda yung paraan, timing mo, kung saan, it would sound offensive for the management.
Exactly.
But, for today's video, special ang ating bisita ngayong araw dahil isa siya sa mga nasa likod ng Philippine Business Coalition for Women Empowerment or PBCWE, isang grupo ng mga kumpanya sa Pilipinas na isinusulong o nagsusulong ng gender equality sa trabaho, lalo na para sa mga kababaihan. So para bigyan tayo ng mas malalim na kaalaman tungkol dito, makakasama natin sa usapang work-related si Ms. Julia Abad, Executive Director ng PBCWE. Welcome to the show, Ma'am Julia. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me, Lloyd. It's Julia.
Julia! Sabi ko na nga ba
Julia.
Sabi ko na nga ba, Julia
It's very tempting kasi
Kaya nga
nakikita mo yung J.
Exactly, the J. So marami nagkakamali dito, hindi lang ako.
Hindi lang ikaw.
Hindi lang ako. Sige, Mas, tell us a bit about this census kasi this is data, basically, and what you're doing as an organization.
So PBCWE is a coalition of large employers that are looking to encourage the entry, retention, and advancement of women in the workplace. We've been around since 2017, and from a membership circle that started at 7, we are now at 46 member companies.
Oh, wow. That's a lot. That's a lot.
It's a lot, and
given
there-
yung time na kaka-start lang siya a few years ago.
Yes, plus I would like to think that our members are influential, pioneering, and industry leaders. So we hope that they are able to influence peers to work on workplace diversity, equity, and inclusion as well.
How did this come to be as a concept?
So PBCWE is a project actually of investing in women, which is supported by the Government of Australia through its Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade. They've been wanting to work with the private sector to improve workplace policies to make it more conducive to a balanced, gender-balanced workforce.
Oh, kasi karamihan, parang, especially sa business environment, parang it's always the male and the man, Yun yung dati, and the trend has been changing.
Yes, because companies are seeing the benefit of having diverse perspectives and diverse composition of workplaces. So, pag iba-iba yung nasa workforce, iba-iba rin yung ideas na pumapasok, iba-iba yung ways of solving problems.
Right.
So, you find, and of course, iba-ibang karakter then makes a workplace more interesting.
Right.
And I think welcoming to be in, to see that they welcome all kinds of people. So in our work, we've found that companies say having diverse workplaces are more productive. People, they retain employees better. And they also perform better kasi they're more creative and they have more and better ways of finding solutions to
Right.
problems.
Kasi pag old man's club, yung mga men natin dyan, para isa lang yung tingin halos, no? At kapag kababaihan daw, medyo iba-iba yung pinanggagalingan, mas maraming ideas.
We like old men also, but it's nice to have them mixed up with
inclusion.
younger employees, women also. Kasi nga yung sinasabi nilang groupthink means you only have one way of looking at a problem.
Right.
So you're unable to see different kinds of solutions. So that's really what drives creativity. And in this day and age, innovation is so important kasi mabilis magbago ang panahon, ang problema. So ang solusyon, mabilis din magbago.
Right.
So mas mabuti na mas maraming iba-ibang klaseng taong
Nag-iisip.
how to solve problems, how to address challenges.
Is this a global trend?
We hope so. I think when we started out in 2017, it was a little bit of a hard sell. Parang people were not that familiar with the concept of diversity. But we found, at least in our circle, our experience, I think after the pandemic, workplaces really had a long and hard think about investing in talent and taking care of people. And so in that time, there was really a lot of interest in how to retain talent, how to keep people in your workplace.
Kasi na-disrupt sila nung pandemic.
I think so. And I think mas workplaces wanted to be more inclusive and caring and welcoming of people, and that was one way to do it.
Right. Tell me something about this. The focus of your organization, specifically sa publicly listed companies in the Philippines.
So-
What's the reason for that?
The census that we conducted, which really looks at the number of women in executive leadership teams, so top management, including board level and CEO, that has focused on publicly listed companies. But PBCWE itself, we welcome publicly listed and non-listed
private.
companies as well. For the census, the focus is on PLCs, primarily because they are regulated by the SEC,
Right.
and the SEC has asked them to submit parang sustainability reports that contain gender aggregated data. So for us, in an effort that required data gathering, sila yung may mas readily available information. Aside from the fact, of course, that PLCs are the bigger companies in the Philippines and also industry leading, and therefore their policies would also I guess, be able to set a tone for other businesses.
Normally ba yan, doon ang gagaling sa malalaki? Nagkakascade pa baba?
Hindi din. We have some smaller companies in PBCWE that are quite innovative in terms of policies. But of course, in terms of prestige, people know about PLCs more. So if they pursued sort of progressive policies, because of their size, it affects more employees. And I guess their reach in terms of publicity is bigger because they are able, because of their size and sort of the influence that they wield as PLCs, they're able to reach more people.
So awareness, very important.
Yes, and I think because it's business, CEOs are influenced really by peers. So it's good to hear about the experiences of those who are similar to you, so that parang best practice cases. So in our recruitment, we find na companies are best recruited by other members because they can see how sort of diversity practices have impacted someone who is like them.
Right. So peers, influence ng peers. Tell me, are there some surprising findings dun sa study? Something na you, as a leader, na discover nitong study?
So, I'll go through the findings. For me, siguro kasi I've been working in this space, medyo matagal na. There are findings that I sort of expected, but I think what surprised me, maybe pleasantly, is that there's a lot of improvement for Filipino women who are working. So first, the study found that glass ceilings, or the invisible barriers that keep women from moving up to CEO or board levels, they're still there, but they're slowly cracking. The absolute number of women in executive leadership teams or top management increased from 2020 to 2022. And now they make up more than 40% of executive leadership teams.
40%?
Publicly listed companies in the Philippines. So almost half. The number of female CEOs is still a very small percentage, but it's also gradually increasing. So at the board level, the number is increasing as well. So that's good news. I think we can see it because you see more and more very visible, very effective female leaders. So I think even when we talk to members, they say, marami namang babae. Marami, pero pwedeng dumami pa.
Para padamihin pa natin. Nanganganib tayo mga kalalakihan.
Hindi naman.
Hindi naman. Okay. The study shows that 40% women make up 40% of the executive leadership. So yun na nababanggit mo. Ano yung factors na nag-contribute dito sa gap na ito? Women and then men.
For executive leadership teams, I think one is the labor force participation itself. No, there are more men than women in the labor force. So just by sheer numbers, there are more men vying for those top leadership posts than women. Second, I think as you go up the pipeline, responsibilities increase, and women are more likely than men to take up both household and career responsibilities. So we found in other studies that we've conducted, while you climb the corporate ladder, so to speak, women tend to fall off kasi they...
Parang step back ka.
Yes, because they need to focus on one or the other. Yun. So mostly, and then of course there's the proverbial, women are accepted as workers in a workforce, but not yet so much as leaders.
May kinalaman ba yung culture natin, parang patriarchal culture dito sa Philippines?
It's a little bit of that. So women are expected, in many cases, women are still expected to prioritize household versus career, and men are still looked at as leaders than women. It's changing, pero in some industries more than others, you will see more men, and some industries you will see more women. Also because there's also a perception that women are good at only at certain things, but not at others.
Who told us that?
I know, right? Where did that come from?
May klaseng ganun. But how do men take this kind of data or information? Like,
We have a couple of CEOs naman who are men. One of them, he retired already. He was one of our founding CEOs. He was a man in a tech company. So his company was one of the first to extend maternity leave, but also to offer it as parental leave, so that when a couple has a child, the leave is not taken up only by the mother, but the father can also take leave to take care of the child. So to impress upon employees that caregiving, taking care of a child is not only the responsibility of the mom, and that the father can also do his
dapat
share.
gender neutral.
Yes, kasi pareho kayong gumawa nun, di ba? So dapat pareho kayong mag-alaga doon.
Parehas kayong gumawa. Maririnig tayo ng asawa ko. Compare this sa ibang countries in terms of gender diversity. How are we?
So in terms of leadership, actually, there was a Grant Thornton survey that said that the Philippines actually leads a number of Asian countries. I think Thailand was part of that, Indonesia was part of that, Japan was part of that, in Korea. We have a larger percentage of women in our leadership positions than other countries. However, in terms of labor force participation, we are lower than the global and the ASEAN average. What does that mean? It means that actually when women do get into the workforce, they're really high performers. But the barrier really starts in the beginning, because a lot of women are not able to work because there are other things that they have to prioritize outside of work.
Outside of work, yun yung distinguished na reason for that.
Because
Kasi
there's a lot of unpaid work that women do, mostly around care and domestic responsibilities.
Kayo masyado nagrereklamo, marami na pala silang unpaid unpaid na trabaho. Oo nga naman, feeling ko din marami. Ngayon naiisip ko tuloy kung paano sa bahay.
Correct.
Sit at home.
Mabuti naman. May natutunan ka sa akin.
Yes, madam, definitely. What types of roles are women most likely to hold sa isang executive leadership team? And why is it significant?
So, thank you for asking that question, because a lot of the times they'll say, oh, ang dami namang babae sa senior management namin. But if you look at where they are, and I'm not saying these roles are not important, you will also find that there are what they call glass walls, or invisible boxes that stereotype women into specific roles. So women managers or senior managers are often found in budget, kasi magaling daw sa pera, babae.
Budget.
Accounting, finance, HR.
Okay.
But women are less often found in operations,
Right.
meaning the decision-making business units that bring in profit or loss to the company. Why is that important? Kasi most of the time, when companies or boards or company leaders are looking to promote, they put a premium on operational experience. So if you're looking to find a new CEO, then most likely you will look at your COOs or those who have been involved in the operational rather than support side.
At
of
wala
business.
doon yung kababaihan, kaya medyo mas
Meron pero
konti.
kulang. Kulang
Okay.
pa.
And then kulang siya. So tama, no? Pag sabi mong IT, mga infrastructure na ganyan, konti o bihira yung makikita mo rin kababaihan, no?
Even in the experience of our companies, growing number, pero they could stand to increase.
Right.
Pwede pang dumami.
Because yung nature ng operations is what? Is it also parang marami ring trabaho and then yung women is less likely to take it din ba?
I think it's both. It's more demanding, and it's also, I think, more in the limelight. Ako as a woman who's taken on a leadership role, it's easier for me to do something behind the scenes rather than something that puts you out there. So there's a hesitation, I think, on the part of women, but also on the part of companies. I think culturally, we're still more comfortable seeing women in supporting roles rather than major decision-making roles in the limelight. And that's something that we need to first accept so that we can consciously take steps to change the way that we think.
Right. But the numbers are showing naman na nababago yung trend eh.
Yes,
So it's helping.
slowly.
Oh.
But I think, as I said before we started taping, I think it's also important to track it over time. Kasi just because you have progressed doesn't mean you cannot regress. Right? So just to make sure that the progress
Continuity
continues.
is nandun. Oh, exactly. Kasi pwede mabago yung numbers.
Sana hindi, pero pwede. Lahat naman pwedeng mabago.
Mabago na mas dumami pa, so mas maganda. Now, tell me something about this. Why do you think 2% of large firms have set their gender diversity targets?
It's a very small percentage still. No, I think companies as a whole like to talk about the importance of diversity. But when you say they have set a target, that means they have really committed themselves to it. Kasi mga business yan, syempre ayaw nila mag-set ng target na hindi nila mamimit.
Correct.
As you know, you interview a lot of people in business. So I think the reason why not many, because there are in business a lot of challenges, and I think not a lot of them have yet identified diversity as a major priority. So while in principle, companies talk about it, I think that when you set a target that really reflects a strong commitment to accomplishing something, because of course, you cannot improve on something you don't measure, and you cannot solve a problem that you don't know. So setting a target is really going beyond, I guess, just saying you're committed to it. That's an actual demonstration of commitment. Is setting it, meeting it, and raising it every year.
Pero ito diversity, pag naintindihan ng mga organizations and then they set priority and say that, okay, we're going to have this diversity program in place, is it really going to be disruptive activities sa isang organization? Sasagutin mo yan, ma'am, pagbabalik ng ating work-related.
Nakaaway mo ba ang boss mo dahil sa isang bagay na work-related? May issue ka ba sa kumpanya na work-related at di mo alam paano i-handle? Kung problema mo ay work-related, kinig, nood at follow na sa DWIZ Work-Related. Kasama ang motivational speaker ng Pilipinas, si Lloyd Luna, at ang kanyang mga expert na mga bisita sa DWIZ, Sabado, 3 p.m. Nakaaway mo ba ang boss mo dahil sa isang bagay na work-related? May issue ka ba sa kumpanya na work-related at di mo alam paano i-handle? Kung problema mo ay work-related, kinig, nood at follow na sa DWIZ Work Work-Related. Kasama ang motivational speaker ng Pilipinas, si Lloyd Luna, at ang kanyang mga expert na mga bisita sa DWIZ, Sabado, 3 p.m.
Welcome back. You're still watching Work-Related. Miss Julia Abad, I posed this question, kung yung bang diversity as a strategy can be disruptive business activity. That's why medyo parang nagdadalawang isip or hindi tinotodo ng mga organizations yung pag-implement nito.
As I said, no, I'm not sure disruptive is the word, but actually now that I think about it, if the organization is only used to thinking in a particular way, when you introduce diversity or difference, respect for differences in thought, then I guess it's a little bit of disruption, because for the first time you will entertain different ideas.
Right.
You will have different ways of looking at problems, which means different ways of arriving at a solution. So if you want to think about that as disruptive, I guess disruption in so much as a different way of doing things, then perhaps you're right. But it's really also a paradigm shift, right? Because from thinking, it's difficult to introduce it, I think, in more established organizations where they have a set way of doing things, because then you introduce diversity, and then you have like creative or newer ways of looking at things. So it's really a different way of doing things.
Kasi parang risky, no? I mean, we have been doing this for how many years, etc., etc., and now here comes a diversity idea, concept. Decision makers are medyo mas marami ng kababaihan on the scene. So medyo nakakatakot.
Nakakatakot, pero like for example, some of the, I won't mention the companies because I didn't ask their permissions, but some very established companies look at it in terms of building a more robust pipeline. Mas marami kang pagpipilian in terms of leadership. In fact, a lot of our members got into gender work or work in diversity because they were feeling like the pool of talent they were choosing from to bring up to leadership levels was kulang. So if you include more kinds of people in your pool, then suddenly you have a bigger pool of potential leaders to train, to mentor, to recruit into a team. And that really means that your succession pipeline is more robust. Diba? You're looking at a longer term.
Right.
Kasi the company cannot last only as long as you, right? You have to have others in the pipeline that will continue your vision or grow it or build on it. So a lot of our members really look at diversity as a long-term growth strategy, because that means you have more people to choose from as potential leaders.
I don't know if this is part of the study, but family business, how can this play out in a family business setup?
Well, I guess it depends on how large the family business is and what the principles are. No, but a lot of our members are also family led. Of course, because they are growing, it's not restricted only to family. They have professional managers that are coming in. Some of them, they used to be quite male dominated, but because their family led, the next in line are females. And so then they realized, the leaders realized that, the former business environment was not friendly to my successors.
Right.
And how important it is for me to create an environment where my children will thrive. Because they're talented, not because they're my children, but because, the business environment should really welcome different kinds of people, because different kinds of people have different things to contribute.
Right. And who knows
to the growth of a company.
And who knows kung alin doon yung magkiklik, right?
Or what kind of combination, because it
what kind of
cannot
combination.
only be one kind.
Why is it important to have women in leadership roles? sa business natin ngayon?
Well, I think we've talked about this throughout the show, no? We really advocate for different kinds of perspectives. So women, men, LGBTQIA, the struggles that they face, the way they look at problems, their lived experiences are very different, and all of those factors contribute to different ways of creating solutions. And I think the more innovative your community is, the more ideas it encourages, and that makes, I think, for a more successful
Right.
business.
Kasi homemakers, no? Practically, you're building homes. So, kung homemaker yung kababaihan, marami silang nakikita, mas naiintindihan nila, mas empathetic daw ang kababaihan. How true?
I don't subscribe to particular stereotypes. No, but there was an American politician who was a woman who had 5 children, I think. So, and she was a quite formidable Speaker of the House. They asked her, "Why are you so successful?" She said, "Yeah, I have 5 kids. I have to make them do things." And so if you can make 5 kids do things, then you can make a whole Congress do anything. But I think that also, that kind of stereotype where it's only the mom that will tell the kids what to do is not something we want to encourage. So I think, I don't think that there are particular characteristics na pang babae lang or particular na panlalaki lang. Pero individually, iba-iba tayo ng
Because of the experiences, iba-iba din.
kakayahan, correct. So, merong pasensyosa, merong hindi. So, pag pinagsama mo sila to solve a problem, they can take turns, di ba? Regardless of whether they're male, female. But I think different ways of attacking a problem will make sure that eventually you arrive at the correct solution.
Some common barriers that women face when they aspire for leadership roles.
I think for one is really the balance between home and work. So just the recognition, for us, we encourage companies to be flexible in terms of when employees can come in, no, and also encourage male employees to take up equal amounts of domestic duties, so that, you know, if your kid has to be picked up from school, it's not always mommy who has to leave the office. Sometimes daddy can also go. And it's really about creating an environment that respects men who do household duties. We like to say, I used to have a colleague in a meeting, he'll give an excuse like, kailangan ko na umalis kasi maglalaba pa ako. Pero actually, hindi siya maglalaba.
Okay.
So parang joke. And then they'll say, sige, alis ka na, maglaba ka na.
Right.
Pero whatever, meron lang siyang dinner or ano. Pero if a woman says, I have to go kasi yung anak ko may homework pa, they look badly upon her. Sinabi ko na nga, wag niyo i-promote yan. Tinan mo, laging lumalabas kasi yung anak gagawa ng homework. So I think companies can create a culture where if you have to leave to do something, then okay, you can make it up some other time.
Right.
And for men, right,
Ganun din.
when you leave, dapat talaga maglaba ka talaga.
Pag sinabi mo maglalaba ka, panindigan mo maglaba ka talaga.
And na hindi, you will not look down on them because they're doing domestic duties.
Kasi parang ano siya yan, tawag
As
dun sa
well.
klase ng joke na yun, parang, ang tawag dun sa joke na yun, parang kapag ka nag-uusap-usap kami tapos pauwi na isa, talagang parang nagiging sagot is maglalaba pa ako or may gagawin
Pero
pa
hindi
ako.
totoo, di ba?
Yeah,
Usually
exactly.
mag-gym ka lang or matutulog
Exactly.
ka.
Or excuse mo lang para hindi ka malasing kung kung lasing ka na doon sa session ninyo. Good. But in terms of performance, saka overall success, paano naman yung diversity, anong role niya to impact that financial performance? How is it related?
So we did a study, Investing in Women, our mother company, did a study with the ILO, and they found that companies with more diverse teams not only perform better financially, they have higher retention rates, meaning less resignations,
Right.
less turnover. But also there's also a study conducted by the International Finance Corporation that found that boards that have a higher percentage of females also have better governance.
Wow,
they have better checks and balance, and so on. So I think having diverse compositions really just means you're more respectful of differences. You're more tolerant of opinions that are not the same as yours, which means you're more open-minded about the ways you look at a problem or a situation, which means that you're able to look beyond the usual solutions to those issues or those problems.
And when it becomes cultural, mas maganda na moving forward, right?
Well, yes, correct. If it becomes a culture that you are so open-minded that you welcome ideas that you would not have thought of, then that makes for a very progressive, I think, very successful business organization.
Yeah. Kasi minsan yung idea ng competitiveness, pagiging competitive ng isang tao, parang that goes in the way of really opening up the entire board or entire team to really discussing what really matters or isang organization.
I think also boards, kasi especially for those who have long-term chairpersons, they're positions of trust. So what's happened traditionally is you will appoint only the people that you know very well. But I think even in established companies, you will find that there's growing awareness of the importance of different kinds of perspectives on boards.
Right. And again, kung gusto nyo gumandang financials ninyo, sabi ng pag-aaral, damihan nyo daw. Practical steps companies can take to promote gender diversity and create a more inclusive workplace. Is it supposed to be a really well-written policy, or let the culture just do it?
I think it's both. Kasi if you have a good culture, not so good leader can overturn that by issuing bad policies.
Right.
But if you have very good policies, but your culture is not inclusive, no one will implement those policies or respect them. It also, with the member companies that we work with, it's been very important to assess what the problems are to begin. Because you can't, as I said earlier, you can't solve problems that you have not identified. So for us, for our members, we start out with an assessment. So we identify areas where they are doing well. We identify areas where they need improvement. And then we ask them to choose. Do you want to focus on the ones that you're magaling at already and just continue that success? Or do you want to fix those areas where you can still stand to improve? And then we help them. And then after a few years, we'll assess again to see if the measures they've taken, policies, or communicating policies to their staff, or promotions, hiring, whatever strategy they have chosen, to see if it's been effective.
Right. But building culture takes time.
Yes.
Medyo yun lang yung
Takes
challenge.
time.
doon.
And being intentional. It cannot be something that happens
Nangyari
na
na.
by the way.
By the way, ito na nga pala kami.
By the way, ang dami palang babae dito.
Now, why do mentorship saka sponsorship naman? They play a crucial role in helping women advance leadership position. Ano yung role niya?
I think it's also because women, unlike men, I guess, don't advance naturally. So in terms of helping them, encouraging them, making sure they know of opportunities, sort of helping them build their confidence to say that, why don't you apply for that, kaya mo yan.
Kasi nga nanggagaling sila dun sa position na parang yung normal is hindi ka na mag-aspire for a higher position because marami kang ginagawa and all.
And they would not, maybe in some company cultures, they would not be the first choice.
Right.
So it's really helpful when picking sort of succession lines that you pick, the not so usual suspects.
But who are doing this mentorship? Saka sponsorship?
We have
Babae or lalaki? Or
same
anyone?
leaders, people with decision-making authority. Sometimes male, sometimes female. In terms of mentoring, it's always useful to be mentored by somebody who understands you. So I attended, I think, a talk of a woman who was in a tech company. And they asked her what her success factors were. And she said, actually, I've been very lucky kasi I've been mentored in every stage of my career. And she's in tech, so all her mentors have been men.
Man.
From academe to all the jobs that she's been in. And now I think she's in a very prominent regional role in that tech firm.
Yung culture sa Philippines, how open are we in terms of mentorship?
Meron naman. I think in some of the firms we work with, it's really a conscious program that they implement. Lalo na the really big firms that want to make sure their leadership pipeline is not disrupted by sort of sudden vacancies.
Right.
So it's a real entrenched effort within a lot of the companies. Some of them are quite global kasi mentoring is kind of a global phenomenon. Pero they are companies based in the Philippines, and there's really a conscious effort to mentor. Even in companies that don't have an established program, I think established leaders do like to do that. You mentor those that you think have potential within their organization.
Because I thought mentorship should be natural to Filipinos, because the building of the rice terraces in Banawe, when I studied it, is really mentorship. That's why we were able to sustain it because of the mentorship. Kaya lang kasi because of the series of invasion, I found out na nawala yung mentorship. So, I'm thinking ngayon, kung natural sa atin yung nawala and then binabalik natin ngayon, pero tayo pala originally yung meron.
Oh, I didn't know that. I learned something new today.
But anyway, it's in my book, Step Back. The Lost Art of Filipino Leadership. Hopefully you can read it. How can business foster a culture where men and women work naman together as allies? Gender equality. We talk about gender equality.
I think by putting them in teams and treating them equally is a good start. No, I always say, because sometimes if I attend events, there are jokes na ayaw nyo kasi ng lalaki, or mas magaling kasi yung babae sa lalaki. I think it's not it's not a question of sino ang mas magaling. It's more of mas okay tayo together rather than magsasapawan or magko-compete.
Or what can you bring in to the table, right?
Everybody has something to contribute.
Right.
Which makes the mix better. Parang pag magluluto ka, 'di ba? Iba-ibang ingredients, tanggalin mo yung isa hindi masarap.
Exactly.
So, it's the same, no? If you just make a dish out of just one thing without mixing it up, pangit ang lasa, 'di ba? Pero if you have the right mix of flavors, then it tastes better.
Right.
It works more, right?
Exactly. So, take the case of halo-halo, 'di ba?
Perfect.
Doon na lang
Also,
tayo
if
sa
you don't
halo-halo.
mix it, pangit ang lasa.
Exactly. Matitaste mo siya. Kung ano lang yung tikman mo. But if you mix it, lahat nandun mas masarap. Sige. So, what's this? What is GEARS, or Gender Equality Assessment Results and Strategies? How can it help local businesses pag-implement ng effective diversity inclusion or diversity equity and inclusion program?
So as I mentioned earlier, GEARS is the assessment tool that we use for members. So when they join PBCWE, we have them go through an assessment so that we know what they need. So meron akong former boss who used to say the correct identification of the problem is really the key to finding the right solution. So GEARS really identifies what are the problem areas in a company. We look at a company's policies and practices in 13 different focus areas, including how you integrate gender into leadership and business operations. We look at LGBTQIA plus inclusion. We look at accessibility for persons with disabilities. More recently, we're also looking at gender in your supply chains, in your suppliers, whether or not you support women-owned businesses and so on. So we look at those areas, we look at your policies and your practices, which is culture, and then we look at your HR data tables just to see the gender mix, if women are spread out in different levels and across job types.
Right.
So it gives us a picture of where you are at the moment as a company. And then we work with you to identify your priorities. We help you make an action plan. And then we help you implement your action plan, sell it to your top leadership, communicate it to your employees. And then a few years later, we will do the assessment again for you to see how you have
Progress.
improved and to see whether there are new areas you would like to focus on. So we've done that for some of our older members. And so now they've moved on to new focus areas. And really, the engagement in their company has really grown since we started. So that's something we're quite proud of. Kasi syempre, when you want to really monitor a problem, then you have to collect data to see where the improvements have
Exactly.
been.
Kailangan siya, series talaga siya. And then kapag member dapat sila in order for them to use the tool.
So far, yes.
Yes, so far, yes.
So far,
okay.
yes.
Your message you would like to share sa mga audience natin ngayon, either in terms of leadership or how your organization can help them.
So I think for young women aspiring to be leaders, siguro, it's important. One, I think as Asians in general, maybe the Filipinos also, and as a female, we're very shy about talking about what we've done. There's always a feeling that if you're really magaling, somebody else will talk about you.
Yeah.
But it's also important to talk about your achievements, no? We're always squeamish about talking about being self-promoting. But that's only partially effective, being good. It's also important to be able to tell people what we're good at and what we have accomplished. Second, I think it's important to be a team player. I think you talked about competitiveness. I think that's a
Collaborative.
hindrance
Yeah.
to progress. So collaborative environments where you help each other are always better performing. And if you are a leader, I found this kasi I used to be the youngest member of many teams. Ngayon, I'm the oldest.
Oh my God.
So, don't be squeamish or don't hesitate to help someone who might be smarter than you. Kasi boss ka na, di ba? If you find someone in your team who is better than you, then you encourage them because
Mentor,
that's
di ba?
helping a future leader. So parang that envy and keeping people down because you want to be the best in the room
Threatened.
doesn't work.
Hindi yun
Yeah.
ang threatened.
It's also a reflection of maybe how you think of yourself. Diba?
Right.
If you think highly of yourself, you won't bring anybody down.
Sige. So where do they get in touch with you if they want to join your organization?
We do have a website which is www.pbcwe.com.ph.
And nasa social media rin kayo. They can
We
just
are on LinkedIn, we are on Instagram, and we are on Facebook as well.
Sige. Thank you so much, Ma'am Julia, for
Thank you too.
for
Thank
this
you for
privilege.
having me. That was fun.
At dyan po nagtatapos ang isa na mga episode ng Work-Related. Samahan niyo po kami ulit sa susunod na episode. Muli po mapapanood at mapapakinggan ng Work-Related sa DWIZ 882, DWIZ News TV at sa mga social media platforms via live streaming. Ako po si Lloyd Luna.
Nakaaway mo ba ang boss mo dahil sa isang bagay na work-related? May issue ka ba sa kumpanya na work-related at di mo alam paano i-handle? Kung problema mo ay work-related, kinig, nood at follow na sa DWIZ Work-Related kasama ang motivational speaker ng Pilipinas, si Lloyd Luna at ang kanyang mga expert na mga bisita sa DWIZ, Sabado, 3 p.m.